How you doing, Ira? How's everything going with your therapy and how everything is going on that side of the ball?
Yeah, I can't believe it, man. Tomorrow's 6 weeks, and I'm doing really well, thank God. And a lot of hard work, a little ahead of schedule, but somebody gave me good advice. The goal is to get to the finish line, not to be the first one there.
Yeah.
So I got to remind myself that every day. But yeah, I feel for these baseball pitchers, man. I don't know how they do it when they have these rotator cuff surgeries. I just don't know.
Yeah, it's brutal. There's no doubt about
Yep,
it.
yep. But hey, a lot of people have it a lot worse.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I'm happy to hear that you're progressing and doing well and you're going to be approaching that finish line for sure. The Jets talk is here. Aaron Glenn is the head coach. How are you feeling about it? Because I wanted to thank you for sharing that picture with me, the throwback of you and Aaron Glenn with your son. So that was something great to see. So you're a Jet fan, huge Jet fan. How does it feel to have one of our own, as the head
Uh,
coach?
yeah, it feels great. And it feels really good because over the years, if you really follow the franchise, even going back to the 60s when probably a lot of your listeners weren't around, Matt Snell, when he finished with the Jets, he begged them. He wanted to get involved and work for the organization, coaching, front office, whatever. And they turned him down. And I think that's why Matt Snell doesn't talk to them these days. So, yeah, it was really good. And, the good thing about Glenn is that how many times, I mean, unfortunately, every couple of years you look for coach, but how many times you could really believe that the coach actually wants this job. This was the job he wanted.
Yeah. It was his dream job. We saw Mike McCarthy was out there. He wanted the job years ago. I don't even know if they interviewed him. Pete Carroll, he didn't even get to come back here for an interview for the head coaching position because he was there in the 90s for a short period there. But this was, I think it was the top guy. I remember last time we talked, we spoke about bringing Mike Vrabel in. He basically
Yep.
used the Jets for leverage to get to his own team with the Patriots. So you kind of just saw the forest through the trees with that one, and he ended up in New England. And Rex Ryan, we talked about that last time. It was pretty much us buying into all of his talk on the radio and the TV
Yes.
programs, and we ended up going with Aaron Glenn, which was the rumored favorite for a while now. And I like the toughness that he's bringing already from his media tour that he's been doing, especially with the press conference the first day there. You could tell he's not going to be putting up with all the nonsense with Aaron Rodgers questions and things like that. And I like his attitude already, especially with the players. He said every player on this roster is going to be under a microscope.
Yep. This is going to be very much like a Bill Parcells run team, as long as the players' CBA agreement allows them to, to crack the whip, if you know what I mean. And I'll tell you something, the more and more, that I kind of look back at what happened the last 2 months, I think if Vrabel was on the table, I think they still would have taken Glenn.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think that there's just something about his attitude and demeanor that they like. They say he's a leader of men. He's worked his way from the ground up, being a scout, being in all different positions up to a defensive coordinator in Detroit. So it's basically he worked his way up the ladder to get this dream job that he has. And you can see that the fans love it. The former players love it. Wayne Corbett was there. You've heard Keyshawn speak out, Victor Green. So they're all giving this guy the green light saying that, yeah, this is the perfect hire.
Well, the greatest I think what I took out of the press conference, and I'm glad they kept it short and sweet for both of them. But the thing that really kind of I loved was that he said that when he was there in '98 and they came up short in Denver in the AFC Championship game, they were like approximately 20 minutes away from going to the Super Bowl, and everything just fell apart. And he felt like it was an unfinished job, and now he wants to come back to get the job finished. And when he said that, that's all I needed to hear.
Yeah, that was one of the worst losses because that was the year the Jets should have went and won that Super Bowl. And I was just even talking about it today about the Sanchez years, those first 2 years, because I said those were the golden years. Who would have thought with me being in elementary school, that would be the last time I'd see them being a great team. And I'm hoping that the golden years are coming back with Aaron Glenn, but I do realize that there's probably going to be an overhaul for the best. And there's a lot of players on this team that I think should be gone. Hassan Reddick, I don't want to see him again. I think that was a failed experiment. Yeah. I think he's got to go. I was reading some things earlier about Breece Hall potentially getting traded. I don't know if I would trade him yet. People are saying the injuries are catching up with him and things like that. There's a couple players on the team. C.J. Mosley, I think it's time to get a new linebacker in there. There's a couple players that I would definitely think about.
Yeah, well, I think, yes, C.J. will be gone probably. What worries me is Sherwood. I mean, I would hate to see him jump ship and go to either San Francisco with Saleh or Atlanta with Oberk. That would bother me because I think Sherwood was one of the bright moments of this season.
He was. He fit in perfectly. He stood out. I think that's a guy that they're going to have to retain, and I hope they do. And it's going to be interesting to see how this new GM works. What are your thoughts on the GM? I feel like the GM is very bland, and I really don't know much about him. I know he's been with the Denver organization, but it was kind of just a no-frills hire.
Yeah, I think that Glenn probably has the upper hand, but I really do believe that this guy, depending on what decisions they do make going forward, I think he's going to try to follow in the same footprints that he did last year. He had that. It wasn't just him; he had a general manager, but the organization, they took the hit with Russell Wilson. They absorbed an enormous dead cap and cap money, and yet they drafted a quarterback and they went to the playoffs.
Yeah,
and I think he's going to try. I really do believe he's going to try to follow that model.
That's probably what's going to happen. And you heard Aaron Glenn mention in the press conference that they've been in contact with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know how much. Do you really buy into the rumors of him wanting Rodgers back?
This is how I look at it. I got three parts, A, B, and C. Ability-wise, you can't argue that he's the best option out there right now. You really can't, even at his age. Okay, if you're going to draft a young quarterback, and I want Dart, and I want him in the first round, and if Taylor's going to be a backup, I could see that. Okay, I could also see that they're going to completely clean house. At least with the major players and start afresh, which they should. It's a new regime, and I think the third possibility is that they bring in two veterans. Well, they have Taylor in the contract. They bring in another veteran, and they still draft a quarterback. So I think a lot is going to be determined. But I do think, and I'm sure privately, publicly, they won't announce it. But I think, I'd say by the middle of February, the Jets are going to know which way they're going.
Yeah, and it's going to have to be quick. And I think with Aaron Glenn, too, he kind of let that known during the press conference. He's going to put his foot down, where last year and the year before, Rodgers was pretty much in control of the team with the draft, saying he was going to show up there, just his press conferences, and then the comments. I remember we talked about him going after Woody Johnson's sons with the whole Madden thing, and then the son potentially releasing him. So Aaron Glenn has to really show that he's a real head coach and not a pushover like Saleh. He's going to come in here and put his presence right into the team and put his foot down.
I agree. And I personally, if I was in Rodgers' shoes, I don't know how you could come back and play for the Jets after you were knocking the owner.
Yeah. I don't get that, because I don't know how you can insult the owner's family and then think you're coming back here and you're going to be the king of the town again. It's just a very difficult situation. But there's also a couple other players. I think Sauce Gardner will still be on the team. He's still under contract. I think just because he had this bad year, I feel as though that they can turn him around. There is one player on the roster, and I've mentioned it before. I know he's a fan favorite. I know he's good at times. I feel as though Garrett Wilson is someone that's interesting for a trade target for me, in my opinion, because he just annoys me sometimes, because I just feel as though he's always complaining. He's always crying. It's just, and then you really don't see much change, but he does have all these outstanding yard-breaking records with the team, and it doesn't translate because the Jets don't win games.
No, I I mean, I think if Rodgers and Adams are back, Wilson's gone. And I think if the two of them are gone, I think Wilson's back.
Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. I really, it's going to be interesting to see how this everything gets handled. They definitely have to go in a new direction of tight ends. We talked about that before. Rucker and all these guys, Conklin, you definitely need an overhaul at the tight end position.
Yep. I know a lot of these. I try not to look at these mock drafts, but sometimes you put on the TV and they just flash in front of you. Everybody got them picking up Penn State tight end at 7. And if that's what they're doing, fine. But I tell you, this Jackson Dart, man, the Ole Miss quarterback, I don't think he's going to get past the Giants. But, man, would I love to get my hands on him because I think he just has so many skill sets that compare to Josh Allen. And if he could sit for a year and get, they get the right coaches, and, the kid gets to learn, maybe they get something in him.
They're definitely going to have to get a quarterback in this draft. That's going to be something that they address. What about Jordan Travis? You think he's going to be gone off this roster? I was thinking about that earlier because it wasn't a guy that the new regime drafted.
Yeah, what's this going to be? Year 3 he's going into?
I think, is it 2? I think it's 2.
Year 2. Well, it was pretty brutal. I mean, I don't even think he practiced it all year. I don't know. Maybe they bring him into camp and he gets cut. I mean, I don't think these two are going to have any alliance to any of the players, that were, on the fringe. And I think they have 23 or 26 unrestricted free agents. They don't have too much money. Not too much money to spend right now. So, Moogie definitely has his work to do.
Yeah, it's going to be a complete change next year. I just want to see it progress to a winning season. I know the expectations are, I don't know if they're going to be high or low, but it's probably going to be low because it is the first year. But I think we should see some progress here with a winning season because it all starts with the head coach. It really does when you look at it.
Yep. I mean, whether it's Rodgers or some other quarterback, if they have a legit quarterback, I think they'll have a winning season. And, winning doesn't have to be playoffs or Super Bowl. But at least 9-8. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, and that would be a big accomplishment. And the one thing though that kind of surprised me, you hear I know they got Wilkes as defensive coordinator. I thought that was a great hire because he has a lot of experience.
The Cardinal job.
Yep. This Banjo kid coming out of Denver.
Mm-hmm.
That smells of Mike Westhoff because I think Westhoff's going to hang around during training camp. So I'm sure he has a big influence on getting that kid the job. Special teams, I could live with a rookie head coach. The offensive names that you hear out there, I'm a little surprised. I feel a lot more comfortable with an experienced offensive coordinator than a first-time offensive coordinator.
I agree. They really need to get the coordinator in here. And Glenn said he's going to be involved in all parts of the team, but you still need a great offensive coordinator because that's what the Jets lack. They always have a great defense. Well, this year was very eye-opening as to just how lackluster they were. But we want to see a great offense with this team. They have the pieces there, but it can change. I know that based on what they're going to be doing as far as the analyzation of all the players on the roster. Yep.
It's gonna be interesting, and it sure looks like they're gonna get this guy from the Lions, who's like passing game coordinator.
I did see that.
Like most of the coaching, looks like it's gonna go down probably. Most of the coaching staff, and rightfully so, they're gone. I think I read they're gonna retain maybe Jefferson as a wide receivers coach, and I forget who the second one was. I think there were 2 coaches that they're gonna bring him back. But and then Moogie will probably, after the draft, he'll start cleaning out the personnel department.
Yeah, that's what needs to happen. Scouts, everything needs to change with this team. And we talked about that the last time, especially plenty of times on the show, that it's not always just the coaches. It's everything. It's the people up above. It's even the owner, but we know Woody's never selling the team. But he even admitted that he needs to be a better owner.
And you know what? I supported what he said, and I actually trust what he said, because maybe he really took a step back and he looked at the first 10 years that he had the team, and they were very successful.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't hear the stories of him meddling the way supposedly he has recently. And maybe he's going back to that way, and that would be a good thing. It doesn't mean he's not going to have input, but he needs to let these two men make the football decisions, and I think I trust he has all intentions of doing that, and hopefully he doesn't get frustrated and, change during the middle of the season.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to see another revolving door of a head coach and a GM. I like that they brought a new regime in at once, but I don't want to see.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should let Aaron Glenn sit here for. I don't even want to start thinking about this because it's so repetitious of just being a Jet fan. But how long are you willing to give Aaron Glenn in this position? Because they signed him to a 5-year deal. Do you kind of want him to? I want him to be like the Mike Tomlin or the Harbaugh of this team that's here for years. Do you really want to can this guy within 2 years, like 2 or 3 years, like Salah? I really don't want to see that.
No shot. I mean, Salah. What did he put in? 3 years, 4 years?
I think he was 3 or 4. Yeah.
Yeah. So if he gets that many years, I mean, Glenn's he got a 5-year contract. He's got to get 4 years. I mean, unless things come completely off the rail, and I don't think that's not gonna. I don't think that's gonna happen.
No,
I'm really buying into this, and I really feel good about it. But I think a lot of it is Glenn's character, his leadership, and once again, he has to grow into being a head coach. But it's such a big factor that he worked for the organization, he played for the organization. He wanted to come back to the organization. To me, that really means a lot.
It does, and he's been there through the highs and the lows. Richie Kotite and Parcells.
Well, a funny story. Probably, I don't know if you probably were on board when he was a rookie. It was either the first or second preseason game in '94, and they go down to Philadelphia to play the Eagles, and he came out of Texas A&M as the leading punt returner in the nation. So I was actually more excited about that than quarterback. And he goes back there in his preseason game, and he handles his first 2 punts. He fumbles, they lose the ball. And he never took another punt return for the rest of his Jet career.
Wow. That's insane. And he really was the number one corner before Revis got here. And what are your thoughts on Darrelle Revis? Because I hate that they didn't bring him back after he tore his ACL and went to the Buccaneers. But when you look at it, when he won with the Patriots, it just stings.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on? What are your thoughts on Revis? Do you? I mean, because Aaron Glenn, to me, even though he went to the Texans, he is a true Jet.
But he went to the Texans because the Jets didn't protect him.
Yeah, with the expansion draft.
Right, which, the general manager, Terry Bradway at the time, I know that one of his biggest regrets, even to this day, is that he didn't protect Aaron Glenn. And that was unfortunate. But, when I look at all the years of Jet football, I mean, you can't even have a conversation. Revis, of course, is the best corner. Yeah. But number 2 is Glenn.
Yeah.
And number 3, I put James Hasty. And number 4, I put Antonio Cromartie.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my top 4 corners.
Yeah.
Those are my top 4 corners.
That's the perfect list right there. Cromartie, Revis, they were a dynamic duo. And Revis, it's just a shame that when he came back the second time, it's sad to see him get released because he was great when he first came back that Fitzpatrick year, but then that Sammy Watkins Buffalo game, it went down from then. Remember that? Oh.
That would, and Bowles wouldn't do anything.
No adjustments.
Nothing whatsoever. And you know who also doesn't get mentioned, who I learned when they start courting Aaron Glenn? Ray Mickens was a terrific player for the Jets. Terrific.
Yeah.
And, nobody ever talks about him, ever.
No, they don't bring him up. Remember D. Milner?
Oh, God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I'm not going to name a name, but somebody in the Jets organization told them not to draft him.
Oh.
And he has ties to that school. So it's just not good. And didn't they draft him and he had a whole slew of injuries coming out of college?
Yeah. Yep. And then he said he was the number 1 player, the number 1 corner in the league. Remember that? Oh,
it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you one thing though. With all due respect to people who would probably lose their job after the draft, you look over the years, at least the last 5-10 years, of players that the Jets had, and it just shows you, maybe the personnel department doesn't deserve the hits that they take, because you got a guy, Sam Donald, even though he had two big games at the end, he turned it around. Geno Smith turned it around.
Mm-hmm.
Frankie Louvu, Arthur Millette. Now, you know how I felt about Becton. I told you Becton would be out of the league in 5 years. I was dead wrong. Look at the year that he had. But it just shows you what a good coaching staff does. They put him at guard, and he's almost a Pro Bowl guy.
Yeah, it's the staff. It really it's the coaching staff. It all starts with the coaching and just the atmosphere that they bring in there. They got to be strict, disciplinarian, and know what they're doing. And a lot of times these guys get in, and it's like they don't even know how to coach.
They don't know. Look, Danny Woodhead. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could go on and on and on with names that they just had in-house. They let them go, and then they blossomed, and they have this terrific NFL career. I remember Jonathan Vilma, Eric Mangini said, well, he's too small to play in my 3-4 system. And then he goes on to the Saints, and the same thing with Demario Davis, and I think he's still playing. Just crazy.
It's unbelievable. I was actually, because I don't think I ever asked you about this, because I was going through the Jet receivers of all time and just looking at those '90s teams, especially the Parcells. Are you a fan? Are you a fan of Keyshawn Johnson? Did you admire him when he was here? Were you one of the? Because I read that a lot of Jet fans preferred Wayne Corbett.
I think Corbett had a better Jet career than Keyshawn did. But I know Wayne, and great player. But I just think overall gifted talent. I think Keyshawn was a more gifted player, and probably if he had the drive and the work ethic that Corbett had, he probably would have been a much better NFL player than he turned out to be, because he was. And I'll tell you a funny story about him. When they were playing the Colts, and it was his first touchdown pass. You could probably pick it up on YouTube. And he catches his pass in the end zone. And he went at, you know the movie Jerry Maguire?
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
Okay. You know when the guy gets up from after taking the bad hit and he starts carrying on?
Oh, yeah.
Well, what Keyshawn did in the end zone after that touchdown was like that, but a bit more. It was unbelievable. He threw his helmet, I think, into the crowd. He was dancing. He did a flip. He went out of his mind. It was like he just won the Super Bowl. It was crazy, crazy.
And they let him go too. He ended up going to the Buccaneers. Yeah, with the trades.
Yeah, but look how that worked out. I mean, we got Pennington, Abraham, Ellis, Anthony Beck. I mean, that actually worked out good for the Jets.
Yeah, for once. Unbelievable.
And you know what's funny? In that draft, that first round gets all the credit, but another underrated player, Lavernius Coles, was picked in the third round in the 2000 draft.
That's right.
So as bad as, even though I think Parcells had horrible drafts when he was with the Jets, that 2000 draft was unbelievable. The only mistake he made was there was a scout, and rest in peace, this guy, Jesse K. And I don't know, I guess fourth, fifth, sixth, whenever it was, Tom Brady's on the board. And this guy is begging Parcells to take this guy named Tom Brady. And each round goes by, he doesn't take him. The story I heard is this guy actually got on top of the desk and was pounding the table to take this guy, and he didn't take him.
Oh, that would be the biggest mistake. Probably, yeah, it is. But it's the biggest mistake in all the other franchises that didn't pick him too. So
of course, not just the Jets, but you know what? If Brady was drafted by the Jets, and you could say the same thing about Marino, they would have never had the careers that they had.
No. And then even look at Mahomes. I mean, that does bother me too, because we always bring that up when we bring up Mahomes, is that because they had Hackenberg, they didn't even take Mahomes. They thought that he was going to blossom into something. They should have took Mahomes. And then it just goes back to it again. If they had Mahomes, who knows if he would turn into what he is now.
Never. I mean, I'm sure he'd be a good player, but he would never be what he is now. And it's funny, going into that game last week, and with 3 minutes to go, I was nervous. I thought Buffalo would actually win that game, but you can't not say the Chiefs are going to win every freaking playoff game, and then they lose to the Eagles. But until I see Mahomes lose a big game, I got to pick him.
Yeah, it's tough. I want the Eagles to win because I'm tired of seeing the Chiefs win, but I just feel as though he's going to win again. And I was going for the Chiefs again. A lot of people, but pretty much the whole world was pretty much going for the Buffalo. But I can't root for Buffalo. As much as I don't like the Chiefs because they're winning too much, I can't sit there and watch Buffalo hold up that Lombardi trophy. I can't because the Jets haven't done it since I've been alive.
Nope. And I think Josh Allen, as great as he is, and he's great, I think probably by the end of his career, he's going to be very much like Dan Marino.
Yeah.
Marino did get to a Super Bowl. They didn't win it. But then he never got back. And Josh Allen may never get there because, let's face it, it's tough to win in the NFL. I don't care who your quarterback is or who your coach is. It's tough to win year after year after year. And they knocked on the door 4 or 5 times. They came close.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get over the hurdle. How many more chances are they going to get?
Who knows? And it's like they just can't get past the Chiefs. And it's interesting to see. Were you surprised that the Commanders made it that far? Talk about a complete overhaul of an organization right away.
Yeah, I was really shocked. And I thought it was going to be a Cinderella story. I picked Washington. And I shut that game off when the game got out of hand in the third quarter. I couldn't watch anymore. But that quarterback is terrific. He really is.
Daniels. Yeah, that's. I'm telling you, that's what the Jets have to model themselves after. They have to rejuvenate that whole team and just build a new atmosphere in there and get the right players in there and get it going on the coaches. And I did want to go back to that Aaron Glenn picture that you sent me. Where was that? Was that at one of the camps that you met him?
No. That was down in Miami in 1997. It was in a team hotel, and I was hanging out with some of the guys, and I took a picture with him, and I never asked for autographs. A picture I would take, an autograph. I never bothered these guys. And that was a killer game. Of course, I have to look it up. It was mid-November. The Jets and Dolphins are fighting for first place. I don't know, 6-3, 6-4. They maybe a game apart. Maybe they're tied. And Glenn Foley had a monster game, and the Jets are having this comeback, and they're either within the score, or if they scored, they were going to win the game, and they're driving. And there was no instant replay in that day. And there was a huge third down play late. Corbett makes this incredible diving catch, and they move it incomplete. And the replay shows that there was a catch. And if there was replay, the Jets would have kept the ball. So, it just, I'll always remember that game. But that was a fun trip. And, I always like going down to Miami. I like going down there. And I love that stadium. And what they've done with that stadium, the NFL, fans pay a fortune to go to these games. And I don't care if you're in 100-degree weather, if you're in 10-degree weather and it's snowing. You shouldn't have to be exposed to that type of weather conditions. Mm-hmm. And what the Dolphins did, instead of tearing it down and building a roof, they left the field, they built a semi-roof, mm-hmm. where basically every seat you're undercover, and the field is exposed in case it's raining. The field's going to wet.
Yeah.
But the fans keep dry. And I think Buffalo is doing the same thing in the new stadium. The players will have to deal with the elements, but at least the fans will be dry. I mean, that's how Seattle is. And I think all NFL teams, that's how it should be. I mean, you pay $200-$300 for a ticket and you're sitting in a pouring rain. It's not fun.
No, it's not. You're getting soaked. You got to put the garbage bag over you. It's not a great experience when you're in those games.
No, not at all. And I guess the draft talk will start kicking up pretty soon. So let me ask you, mm-hmm. what's your prediction with Rodgers? Where do you think this ends up?
To be honest, I will be surprised if he's back. I think he retires. I really do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think he does. Yeah, I mean, he could end up with San Francisco, but the only thing that makes me think that he won't end up there is because there was bad blood there with him not being drafted there. That was something I thought he had a grudge against them for. I just think he'll probably retire if he's not back here because, I mean, he's got another year on his contract. And I don't know. I just think I just have a feeling that he's not going to be back here. I'm going to be surprised if he is.
I mean, I hope you're right, and my sentiments are the same as yours. But I guess time will tell because, and I understand the debate going back and forth, and the people who want him back, and he's the best available quarterback out there. I mean, I get all of that, but there's so much baggage that comes with it.
Yeah, documentaries and just Pat McAfee show appearances.
and let's say he cuts everything out. He's soldier, that best soldier. He conforms to everything, right?
Yeah.
And they go 9-8. They have a good year. They make the playoffs. They don't make the playoffs. Whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't draft a quarterback this year. Now, you come back in 26. He's gone.
Yeah.
Taylor's a free agent. What do you do? What do you do? You're coming off a 9-8 season. You're building something, and then you don't have a quarterback.
Yeah. They got to draft somebody. They got to figure it out. That's the number one question mark for this team right now is quarterback. What's going to happen? And they got to get it figured out quick. Like you said, at February, we're going to really see what's going to happen there. And, we can't wait on Rodgers going into all these dark rooms and all these journeys that he's doing on all these different places. Aaron Glenn's going to put his foot down. He made that clear, and that's just the presence he's going to give. And I don't know if Rodgers really likes that because it seems as though Aaron Rodgers wants to be the one to call the shots.
Yep, and you also look at it this way. I mean, as great as he is, even at this stage of his career, okay, he got to come in. He has to learn a new system, basically for the first or second time in his 20-plus year career, whatever it is. All right, at his age, if he could play up to his ability, learning a new system because the timing's going to be off and he's used to throwing all these slant passes. They may not have that. I mean, who knows what this offense is going to look like?
It's going to be completely different, and hopefully better than what it was this year. Especially, it was brutal. Just the interceptions and the mistakes, the fumbles, and just it was really a big letdown year. I'm expecting an overhaul for the best. I want to see progress.
Yes, I do, and in Glenn I trust, and I really feel good about the hire. And I just read today, and I wasn't even aware of it, and they had zeroed in on Aaron Glenn back in November.
Wow.
So, I read that Judy Batista on NFL.com has a really good article. It's a must read. And the Jets were doing their homework on Glenn back in November. And I know Woody took a lot of criticism, and it probably cost him maybe a winning season by getting rid of Salah. But you can't blame him now because if we end up, Glenn turns into the coach we expect him to be, he wouldn't have been able to get a head start.
Exactly. With that throwback picture, is your son wearing, is that a Ronnie Lott jersey? Because Ronnie Lott,
yes, that's a Ronnie Lott jersey. That's exactly right.
I had one and I sold mine. I had a Ronnie Lott Jet jersey because he finished his career here. He was here one of his final years.
Ronnie Lott, I think one of the biggest plays I remember him playing the Giants in '93 in the rain, sitting in the rain, and it was a Giant home game. And the Giants were going in for a late score to win the game, and it was a fourth down somewhere, I don't know, in the red zone somewhere. I don't know, remember where it was. And Lott broke up the Phil Simms fourth down pass, and Jets ended up winning that game, a very low scoring game. And Lott was a great player for the Jets. One of the few free agent acquisitions that actually lived up to his billing.
Yeah, 1994. That was the year.
93.
It was 93. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, that's a.
And I'm sorry.
Oh no, continue.
No, that was. Let me tell you something. Some of those Boomer teams, they had a lot of talent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Johnny Mitchell, Rob Moore, what's his name? The running back, Johnny Johnson. I mean, the defense was good. I mean, in '93, they should have made the playoffs. They choked a couple of games at the end of the year. They lost a killer game once again up in Buffalo, in frigid weather. Field goal, Corey Blanchard, the field goal kicker, missed like 3 or 4 field goals. Of course, the Jets the game. They would have made the playoffs. And, but they were good.
Yeah.
They were good. And then, unfortunately, Leon Hess got lost his patience with Pete Carroll, and we know what happened in '95 and '96.
Yeah. Ugh, horrible.
Oh my
Absolutely
God,
coat tight ears.
Oh my God! But Glenn was part of it, and he wants to turn this thing around, and I think he will. I really do. I have a lot of faith in him, and maybe I'm being a little over optimistic, but I feel good about it.
Yeah, I do too, and I'm optimistic about it, and I'm excited to see what happens. And it's time that we really let this new regime marinate, because I feel as though we expect the results right away. But I want a guy that we can keep for years. I don't want any more Robert Salehs, no more Adam Gases. I don't want any of that. I want a guy that we can hold here for years.
Yep, I want. I hope. Hopefully, he turns into be the next Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, I'm hoping. From his attitude, it seems as though he has that same cadence. So I'm really hoping and praying that he's the one.
Well, what I'm really looking forward to is training camp, and I know there's only a certain amount of things that you could do now because of the new rules. But I think these players are in for a rude awakening.
Yeah. Yeah, all these guys, Sauce Gardner, you want to do all these commercials and be, the top shots. No, you're going to have to come here and really put in the work now.
Yes, and don't be surprised if Glenn kind of, they are grown men, but if he kind of scales back on their Twittering and their social media or whatever these guys do, because the Jets seem to lead the league with all that crap.
Yeah, they got to stay away from that. In the leaks that this organization has with the media, they got to keep everything in house. It's got to be no more nonsense with the media. Just all these different stories that you hear come out constantly. No more players causing any more headaches. You can't have any of that.
No, and it certainly looks like Parcells really is to have a big influence with Aaron Glenn. And I tell you, I remember when Parcells was here. You didn't have that garbage.
No.
And I think that's how it's going to be. These writers, I think they're going to be pulling their hair out of their head. But I think that's just that. He's going to have to sit back and wait like everybody else.
Exactly. I'm looking forward to it, but let's hope that this is the right guy. I pray that it is. It feels as though that it is right now. Just the reception that's been out there from the fans, the former players, the organization, the media. So let's hope here, Ira.
Yep, I think we got a good one this time, and hopefully we get to talk as we get closer to the draft or free agency. Well, not free agency comes first. So actually, free agency starts. Believe it or not, I think in 6 weeks.
Yeah, it starts
March
soon.
13th. That's crazy.
Yeah,
my bet is if the Jets don't know already, I'd say in a matter of 2 weeks. They know what the Rodgers is. Well, publicly, nobody might not find out what it is, but I'd say by the latest by mid-February, the Jets know what they're doing.
Yeah, that's what Aaron Glenn. It's going to get figured. He said that he's not going to rush it, but I don't buy that. I think he wants to get there.
Yeah, I don't buy it for 1 second.
No.
So what do you think, Donald? Leave it on this. Where's Donald going to end up?
Anywhere but the Jets. I'm hoping. I don't want to see him here again. Because you know how I felt about Sam. Because we had a ton of quarterbacks that we could have chose from in that draft. I wasn't a big fan of Sam Darnold out at USC. We see how a lot of USC quarterbacks turn out. You're looking at Caleb Williams now. He's not doing too good on the Bears. Mark Sanchez had the 2.5 good years pretty much. And they just don't pan out. But you had Josh Allen there. You had Lamar Jackson there. They could have traded up for Baker Mayfield instead of the Browns doing it. There was other options there. So, yeah, I don't want to see Darnold again. I saw enough of him. We really saw the real Sam in those final 2 games. I will say that.
Yeah, I tell you, I felt so bad for him in those 2 games. I really did.
Yeah.
It was... he had such a great year, and then with the money on the line, he just reverted back to who was before he got to Minnesota.
Yeah, his New York Jets self. I'm good to never see Sam Darnold in a Jet uniform again. I think and Zach Wilson. I don't care if he blossoms somewhere else. I don't want to see him either. The two of them.
No shot. And I don't think Darnold would come back to the Jets. I wouldn't be surprised, or Pete Carroll's with the Raiders, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be shocked if Donald ends up out there.
That would be interesting. Yeah, Pete Carroll. I'm telling you, that was someone that I wanted them to consider getting before the Aaron Glenn thing started to really heat up, and you were hearing Rex Ryan. Because remember, I mentioned it to you, and we were kind of speculating. We didn't know if he was still going to coach. We really didn't know, because I brought it up. I said, "Hey, Pete Carroll's he's out there," and that was like a surprise move. He went to the Raiders.
Well, you know what was interesting about this article is, over this extensive search that they had, the article said that they spoke to several veteran head coaches, and these were, I think they said they were unions or whatever they were, and they pretty much came right out and said, "Listen, we'd like to pick your brain and how you feel about certain things, but you're really not a true candidate for the job." I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is, especially with him winning a Super Bowl and having success with Seattle for so many years. You would think that there would be a chance there, some news that we might have some interest in bringing him back.
Yep, and look at McCarthy. McCarthy's not coaching this year.
No, he's not. Oh, yeah. That was going to be interesting, too. I thought about that once Dallas let him go. I said, is he going to come here now that Rodgers is on the Jets and they're going to try to spark something again?
Oh, that would have been horrible.
Yeah, it would have been.
That would have been horrible. I wish Rodgers well. Even if he goes on to another team and wins and plays well, I really don't care. I just want a clean slate.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. It's time that clean slate. Let's start fresh. Turn the chapter in the awfulness that we've experienced in all these years since the two back-to-back AFC championship games, and let's get back to getting to the playoffs. It's been so long now.
Yep. Well, hopefully this will be the year.
Yeah.
And like I said, hopefully we'll talk about free agency time.
Absolutely. All right, Ira. Right. Take care.
Have a good night. Enjoy the Knicks, man.
You too. I will. Bye-bye. Take care, Ira.